just so thrilled to be able to sit down and personally talk. I can say, yeah, I talk with him personally. I know.
Well,
I know this man.
you can see that I enjoy talking about this work. This is
Yes, your
this
passion is really
yeah.
comes through. And one of the purposes I want to have out of this is that the people who hadn't been funding you, that they find out about this, and that they begin to do matching funds or just, on their own, supporting it on a monthly basis. That's not a lot to ask.
It's hard for us because we're less visible than the King Memorial in Washington or the King Center in Atlanta. So a lot of the money that goes to them, and that they do important work, but since our work is more scholarly and research and providing educational materials, it's not as noticeable. It doesn't attract.
Well, we want to make it
attention.
noticeable. I know we'll be coming out more frequently to just get updates on where you are and what you're doing, and to make it like a ongoing informational for the community, so that they hear it on a regular basis, and that way it'll be easier for them to contribute. Because the more the information is out there, it kind of like, in the beginning it's like, oh really? And then after a while it becomes like, okay, I will do this. And so thanks again for your time.
I think it's important symbolically too.
Yeah.
I think that
it's like a big commitment to follow through on your.
It's one thing to celebrate his birthday every year. It's another to say, I'm actually donating to make sure that these ideas reach future generations.
Exactly.
And one of the advantages of being an institute at Stanford is that as long as Stanford is around, this institute will be around. And that's the goal, is that this work, I think 500 years from now, we'll still think of Martin Luther King, because he was a symbol for a movement that changed the lives of not just people in the United States, but the majority of humanity. It was only during the period after, during the 1950s and 1960s, with the anti-colonial movements that were going on, the movement in the United States, for the first time, the majority, the population of the earth, became citizens of the country they happened to be in.
Wow.
That had never happened in human history.
And even listening to you talk, I'm inspired myself. What should I be doing? I don't know. But
well, you're doing something just by coming here.
Just another question, because you mentioned something that, one person inspired and touched the pulse of humanity. And so a lot of people have compared President Obama to Dr. King. So I just wonder how would it have been had Dr. King been alive.
Well, I would hope. I know that President Obama says that he admires Martin Luther King and Gandhi, and I kind of wish that Martin Luther King could be a presidential advisor. Not in terms of just whether this law or that law, but just about where are we heading as a nation? Where should we be heading? Now, I know that for many people that would be kind of threatening, the idea, because Martin Luther King, as you said, was more popular after his death than before his death. And Martin Luther King had many radical ideas about how we should change the world to make it more just. But I think that having that voice in the ear of President Obama would be very helpful. I would hope that he has somebody who expresses those views on a regular basis to him, because he's obviously going to get a lot of people on the other side who are in favor of this status quo and really don't want to bring about really transformative changes in the society.
And I think that you said that he would think that Dr. King would have been an advisor to the president. I think that's one of the big things that are missing in terms of black movement, is that we don't have that kind of advice at hand.
I think we do. I think that one of the things that was unique, though, about Martin Luther King is that he combines so much. I mean, I think we have people who have a big vision for social justice in the world, and I think it has to be a global vision now, because we're connected to the rest of the world in the ways that Martin Luther King understood. But I think that one of the differences is that he was both a grassroots leader in the sense of, he had a church. He was a person who had come out of a grassroots movement in Montgomery. But he also had this vision. And now we tend to find in lots of communities, we still have some wonderful grassroots leaders. In any community you go into, you ask around and you find that there are people who are trying to mobilize people to bring about good changes, but often their vision is very narrow.
Yeah.
They haven't pulled back, and maybe they don't have the educational background to give them a global historical vision of what is happening. So they tend to focus on, you can see this with the Ferguson protests, for example. You see a lot of focus on the immediate issue, and that is police brutality and mistreatment and the killing of young black men. But that's related to so many other issues. It's related to the economic issues. It's related to educational issues. It's related to, why do you have a black community with a white police force? What is the cause of that? What King would also say is that this is not just something that happens in the United States. This is something that's all over the world. That we need to understand that connection.
If you were going to say one of the issues is in personal development, knowing who we are as a human being and our responsibility for the rest of society, not just in the interest of survival right now, but what is it going to bring forth in the future? Is that kind of what you're...
I think that we have a responsibility to think about our place in the world. To me, an educated person is one who... King often talked about the 3 dimensions of a complete life. And what he meant by that...
3 dimensions?
3 dimensions of a complete life.
Okay.
And what he meant by that was, you have to see life, and I'll apply it to education. I think every person should know, where are they there in the world? How do you relate to everything that's going on throughout the world? And be aware of the fact that you're connected to that. The clothes that you wear, they weren't made in the United States. They were made probably in some country in Asia. The food that we eat comes from all over the world. All of these interconnections we need to understand. Our economy is affected by that. And then the second dimension would be historical. That where have we come from? Where are we going? Where have we come from? Understanding the historical movement of African Americans through slavery, through the Jim Crow system, what was accomplished, what was not accomplished, what was the unfinished business. What did King recognize, for example, once we had civil rights legislation? If he had been satisfied with that, he would have retired. But he didn't retire.
So name those 3 elements.
So one is geographical. Where are we in the world?
Yeah.
Historical. Where are we in history? Where have we come from? Where are we going? And the third, he would call it spiritual. I would call it also the world of ideas. What does freedom mean? What does justice mean? What are the things that we really value and are trying to achieve?
Yeah.
The values that guide us. We know what, from the Old Testament prophets, they were talking about social justice 3,000 years ago.
Right.
Well, what did they mean by that?
And these are questions that one must ask themselves ongoingly, right?
Yes.
Yeah, just
Ev-
something to
Hopefully every day.
focus on where you are right now, in terms of leading to the next level of whatever that is.
That should be what happens in school. That should be,
Mm.
it shouldn't just be, can you add 1 plus 1 equals 2? It should be those three dimensions. And so that a person coming out of school has that sense of connectedness and can tell
Yeah, I
you
like that. Yeah.
where am I in time and where am I in terms of these ideals, these transcendent ideals that we are willing to live for.
Well, that gives me a chance to ask another a question I hadn't intended to ask you, but I have thought about it. We have had discussions on it. In terms of black people dealing with the fact of slavery coming from Africa, do you think we've ever forgiven ourselves or thought about that since we were freed? Do you think? I think I want to make even maybe more specific than that. Do you think those molecules of slavery are still with us in some point, so we can't get closer, so we don't trust each other? Do you think that's still involved in that?
I would say the past is never past. It's always in the present. Every breath we take is comes out of all of the genes that made us up and all the experiences that made us who we are. The problem is, what do we do with it?
Yeah, how do we
I
move
mean,
from there?
you can dwell on it,
Which I think we do dwell on it.
Well, you can use it as an excuse for not moving forward.
Yeah.
I mean, so a lot of people use their bad experiences, as a reason for not getting out of bed in the morning, and that's called depression. And but that's an illness. Sometimes you can take even bad experiences, even the bad experiences of slavery, and understand that something good came out of that.
A lot of good came out of it.
All of the culture that we experience, all the things that maybe our parents told us when we weren't listening, all of that was the experiences. Hardship teaches some pretty good lessons.
Yeah, I just think we need to acknowledge it to ourselves. One thing I think, now this is just a thought of mine, that as an acknowledgement, we suppress that, how affected we are by it. So therefore, we're kind of stuck there because we haven't really. We just want to deny it or ignore it or.
Yeah, but just look at it the other way.
Experience of.
Is the other way of looking at it is a man who grew up under colonialism in Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
His son is now president of the United States. What does that say? That many things can come out of experience. You can triumph over hardship, or again you can give up. And I think that there's so much of our culture is about what do you do. I mean, what is the blues? I mean, what do you do with pain, emotional pain? Well, you can either
Succumb
to it, or you can turn it into a love supreme. I mean, it can be...
Use that energy for something else.
Right, you can use it creatively.
Yeah.
Much of our culture is that, is the creative use of that many times bad experience. I mean, all the literature, I mean, what is American culture except for African American culture? I mean,
Exactly.
we are one of the main creative sources of the culture of the world now. I mean, when I go practically any place in the world and I turn on the radio, I hear African American music.
Exactly.
And so why did a group of people who have been oppressed by the world create the culture of the world? How did that happen?
Well, I know I could sit here and talk because every time you're speaking, I think of another question I could ask, but I can't stay here all day. So I just really want to thank you again, and I'm looking forward to whatever you have to say at our Dr. King's luncheon. And I'm hoping that it will be profitable for the Institute and it will inspire people to do whatever, to really think about your talk and the
And
emphasis that you're putting
and
on Dr. King's papers.
I would like
and-
to close by, and again, inviting you and all of your friends and all the people who will be watching this to come and visit us. You know, this is something unique in the Bay Area.
Now-
They should know where we are. I shouldn't have to go out 50 feet from my office and talk to 10 people and none of them know where the King Institute is. This should be a place that everybody who cares about Martin Luther King, if you really care about him, you would want to know where is the main source of information
Exactly.
about Martin Luther King, and it happens to be right here on the Stanford campus.
And I want to use a lot of this information and play ongoingly throughout the year for people to understand what your purpose is, that you're here and that it's open house and they can come and visit it during working hours. But do they need to call before they come, or can they just come?
Sometimes if they bring a group, it would be good to call, just to
Okay.
just to let
Just make sure it's available, open,
right. Yeah.
nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you again. This has been such an honor. I consider it a privilege to have been speaking with you, and I'll treasure that. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay. So Peninsula View, Queen Anne Cannon, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that something's been said to have you want to pick out get your check out and write a contribution on a monthly basis, or get your company to do matching funds for the Institute. It's really an important thing, and that could be your part in ensuring the fact that the papers of Dr. King live on for generations to come. So thank you very much.